What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Today we're continuing with our 32-team 7-round mock draft, and we're going to be taking a look at the Washington Redskins. Now, it's always a little bit tough for me to do NFC East rivals because I don't want them to have good drafts. I want their drafts to suck. But, you know, out of the respect and integrity that I want to have for my mock draft and how much work I put in, I'm trying my best for the Giants, for the Redskins, and for the Cowgirls. So it pains me to say that I think we have a very solid draft here for the Washington Redskins. But before we jump into the mock draft, we need to look at what happened in free agency, and they were fairly active, big splashers, to set up our draft board. So looking at what they lost Kendall Fuller in a trade that landed them their next starting quarterback, whereas Kendall Fuller is one of the highest, I think he was probably their highest Pro Football Focus grade last year. And yeah, that kind of stinks. Let's be honest, that stinks considering now they've created a hole. It wasn't like they gave up a place that they had excess depth to land a big-time player. They created a hole to fill a hole, which, you know, often is the cost of doing business in the NFL. They lost Kirk Cousins in free agency to the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, they weren't going to bring him back. They lost starting center Spencer Long. They lost starting defensive end, outside line, boy, he's more an outside linebacker, Trent Murphy. And they lost a really bad bust, my worst fantasy pick in my championship team last year, Terrell Pryor. Look at what they brought in, though. They brought in Alex Smith, which is, you know what, when I'm looking at it, comparing Alex Smith and Kirk Cousins, I think it's a really, really close battle. I know there's a lot of people that, well, they say, oh, Alex Smith is safer than Kirk Cousins. He's a proven winner. He can win more games. And there's other people that think, well, you know, Alex Smith is a game manager, whereas Kirk Cousins can go off occasionally. So there's, you know, there seems to be a divide, if you will. But I think ultimately they're no worse for wear with Alex Smith over Kirk Cousins. They brought in Paul Richardson, who's a deep threat. I think they overpaid him a little bit, but the wide receiver market was pretty crazy. And, you know, he's definitely an upgrade over what Terrell Pryor brought to them last year. They re-signed Zach Brown, who's a really solid linebacker, and they brought over Orlando Scandrick from the Dallas Cowboys, who, when healthy, is a serviceable corner, but it is clearly a band-aid option, and we're going to try to get them more of a long-term solution here in the draft. So jumping into the first round, pick 13, I'm selecting defensive tackle Vita Vea from Washington. My favorite prospect, even though I've pronounced his name 10 different, well, not really 10 different times, it's either Vita Vea or Vita Vea. Either way, absolute monster. He's a more freakishly athletic Danny Shelton. And when you look at the Washington Redskins, they have needed help at the nose tackle spot for quite some time. They've rotated Ziggy Hood. You've tried to throw in Stacey McGee in there. Phil Taylor, just, you know, a revolving door, if you will. And I think ultimately you need to find someone that can play down there with Matt Ioannidis and Jonathan Allen. I think Vita Vea, there goes again. Either way, he's starting day one. He is that good of a prospect, and you've heard there, I believe reports came out that Tom Sula, who's a D-line coach, absolutely loves him. He's his favorite prospect. The fact that it fills a need, he's probably best player available. He's an absolute animal. I think this is a match made in heaven here for the Washington Redskins, and I definitely do not look forward to playing against him as an Eagle fan. Just monster mate. He's good against the run. Obviously, you know what you get in a nose tackle, right? He's a guy that can control the line of scrimmage, free up blocks, take on double teams. But he's also not, like, you know, a lot of times defensive tackles that are nose tackles are purely against the run story. They have no pass rushing moves or anything like that. He does. He's pretty much the complete nose tackle, the most complete nose tackle in probably the last 5 years in the draft. So, like I said, yeah, it'd be a home run here for the Washington Redskins. Moving on to the second round, pick 44, I'm selecting, it's a value pick, cornerback Carlton Davis from Auburn. I think right now, obviously they created a hole by moving Kendall Fuller. You have Josh Norman there, but then who else is going to play? You have Orlando Scandrick, who's a band-aid. You have Fabian Moreau, a third-round pick from the year before. But, you know, is Moreau going to pass the smell test this year? Is he going to be able to stay healthy? From what I saw and what I read about him, did not have the best of times when he was playing. They have Quentin Dunbar, who's a converted wide receiver from Florida. Looks like they gave him a new contract, and he's been solid, but not great. So here is where we get a guy that I believe offers versatility. I think Carlton Davis, the way he plays, he can play safety. I think ultimately he has the kind of tools that could play safety. I'm not saying that they need an immediate safety. They have Monte Nicholson, a fourth-round pick last year that played pretty well, and DJ Swearinger. But I feel like you go for best player available here and understand that, you know, you might not have, you have an open competition for that second cornerback spot opposed to Josh Norman, who's in his own right. Josh Norman, in today's NFL, he's probably close on the cutting block. With how big his contract is, this may be his last year at the Washington Redskins if they want to try to free up some cap space later on down the road. So I just feel like when that's like today's, if you have a key player that's getting close to the 30 age and he has a huge contract in today's NFL, they're probably on thin ice. There's, you know, it's obviously a lot of assumptions there. Maybe they're incredibly happy with Josh Thorne, want to have him for the rest of his career. But I just think when I'm looking at this, best player available for me was still Carlton Davis. He's very, very good, very, very aggressive with the line of scrimmage. And like I said, with the uncertainty, long term for the secondary in Washington, you know, if you think Moreau can be that guy, then get it, maybe his potential future partner here in Carlton Davis. There's not a whole lot of needs here for the Redskins. And, you know, looking at what available prospects maybe were available on the offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, the best guy was Carlton Davis. So we went best player available here. Going to the 4th round pick, 113, I was selecting offensive guard Brandon Mahone from Penn State. I think he comes in and could be offensive guard 3 and challenge for that starting left guard spot next to Trent Williams, according to ourlads.com. No real plug-and-play type guy right now at left guard. It's looking like it might be Orlando Franklin, who's, you know, was good, but then had injuries and stuff, and it's kind of been a journeyman. I think a guy like Brandon Mahone, NFL.com for reference has him as a 3rd, 4th round pick, is solid value here. Penn State obviously blocking the way for Saquon Barkley. You know, the offensive line for Penn State was a little inconsistent last year, but they did struggle with injuries. And I think when you're the Washington Redskins, offensive line should be a priority here. A little bit, you don't reach, but if a guy falls there that's, you know, not too crazy from where he should be drafted, you take your shot. You take your shot lined up. So getting a guy like Brandon Mahone who come in, potentially challenge for the left guard spot, but more so immediately be the top guard depth if he doesn't get that spot, is a very good pick here for the Redskins to build up that O-line. Going to the 5th round, pick 149, I was selecting running back Mark Walton from Miami. I think he can come right in, be running back 3, challenge for that running back 2. The running back spot is really, really weird for Washington. The reason why I went Mark Walton is because he's one of my favorite running backs in the draft class, and before his combine that was kind of slow for his standards, thought he was going to be probably a 3rd round pick. The fact that he's still sitting here in the 5th round, I mean, look at the last running back that ran slower than expected at the combine last year. His name was Alvin Kamara. Things worked out pretty good. Now, they're not the same type of player, but they're kind of close. And when you look at the running backs for Washington, you have Chris Thompson, who shouldn't be classified as a running back. Let's be honest. He's their weapon. He's their offensive weapon. Last year was their best receiver. He is a capable running back out in space. Philadelphia sure as hell remember that from the first game that they played, and they absolutely butchered him. But outside of that, they literally don't have another running back. Rob Kelly's been inconsistent, and it doesn't seem like, in reality, Jay Gruden wants him to be his starter. Samaje Perine didn't really make the most of his opportunities last year. You know, he had the volume, but he didn't make the most of that volume. He had average. He just looked average. So I think a guy like Perine, I don't know. The way I just look at it is like they do not have their running back yet. They have Chris Thompson, and then they have a bunch of guys. So get a guy like Mark Walton, who's a little bit undersized but shiftier, can run between the tackles. I think could develop as a 3-down back if you needed that. You don't really need a 3-down back if you're Washington because you have Chris Thompson. But I feel like get a guy. He has really, really underrated pass protection for a guy that's that small, which is a major plus. And he may have the highest ceiling if you're comparing him to Rob Kelly and Samaje Perine or Capri Bibbs or anything like that. So I think when you're looking at the roster, you got to get another running back in there that they believe could be the guy with Chris Thompson. And I don't really think Rob Kelly or Samaje Perine is going to be that guy or is viewed as that guy from Jay Gruden. Going to the 6th round pick, 188, we're going with one of the Combine Warriors. They've been known to draft Combine Warriors. They got running back Keith Marshall in 2016, and they continue that trend by getting safety at pick 188, Dane Cruikshank from Arizona. I think he could come in and be safety 4, maybe even challenge to be the backup safety behind DeShazier Everett, or even challenge for it, because personally I'm not going to go on Everett because I don't really like him that much. But, you know, Cruikshank is one of your Combine workout warriors. The safeties went off this year. There's no other way to put it. The safeties were the most impressive in terms of combine numbers. And when you look at his tape, I mean, he's versatility. He can play cornerback, he can play safety, but when you look at it, he's 6'1", almost 210. And Cruikshank, 4'4", 140, 25 reps on the bench press, almost a 40-inch vertical, 6'8", in the 3-cone, 4'2", in the 20-yard shuttle. Like, he absolutely dominated the combine. And I feel like, you know, the fact that he could challenge and probably more likely make the final 53 for safety depth, and the fact that with that size, with that speed, and some decent tackling ability, he's going to be a big-time contributor on special teams. It's an easy pick here for the Washington Redskins. And then finishing up here in the 7th round at pick 231, I was selecting center Coleman Shelton from Washington. I think he comes in and it can be center number 2. They have Chase Roulier there, who's a 6th round pick in 2017, who I think was actually a fairly underrated pick. Now, I don't know like his Pro Football Focus ranking at the top of my head, which is usually the go-to when you're talking about offensive linemen. if you even want to, like, you know, consider that. But I think Coleman Shelton from Washington, he would be a much higher pick. But the thing is that he's a left-handed center, which I've heard is, you know, really awkward for quarterbacks. I don't know. I never played quarterback. But based off of blocking talent, it seems like he's more of a mid-round pick. But because he is a left-handed center, I think that's something that's kind of going against him. But ultimately, when you're the Washington Redskins, you now need to definitely have some competition there for the center spot. Go with the guy with the talent. It might be a little bit awkward, but if you feel like Alex Smith can be able to handle that, you could be getting a very good value pick here in the 7th round for a guy that definitely will, worst case scenario, challenge for center depth. Best case scenario, might actually emerge as the starter at some point during next season. So there you go, guys. Not a whole lot of picks here, but we did it. We did the Washington Redskins draft, and ultimately, I'm going to be very disappointed if they get Vita Vea and Mark Walton, because those are 2 of my favorite players in the class, and I really do like Carlton Davis as well. But let me hear from you guys. Do you agree or disagree with any of the picks here I have for the Redskins? If you're a Redskin fan or just want to continue along, post your mock draft, and we see how it stacks up side by side. As always, if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.